Thanks for tuning in to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us. You know, when we're talking about corn, it's not so simple anymore, Brian. We aren't just spraying Roundup in our Roundup Ready corn. We're probably going to mix something with it. So we'll talk about some of those broadleaf products that can be used in corn on today's show.
Well, we're also going to change gears from that completely, Darren, and get into fungicides today, especially in wheat. What are the right timings for spraying in wheat to get maximum yield, and which fungicides should be sprayed when? We'll cover all that today.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things to talk about this time of year, and of course, weed control with weeds like our Weed of the Week is one of those things, and we'll start today's show with our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about how do farmers protect their seeds from insects and animals.
Well, when you say protect your seed, you have to think about it. Seed is actually food. I mean, you could eat a kernel of corn or a kernel of soybeans. That would be fine. And for many insects and for many rodents,
it's a tasty treat.
That would be their lunch. So they're out trying to get it in our field. Now, of course, if we can get past the early stages of growth, we're pretty safe from both of those competitors with our seed. So it's important for us to do something to that seed to keep those bugs and rodents away.
So seed companies will treat the seed corn before it ever gets out to the farmer in most cases. And what they're typically treating with to prevent insect damage is one of the neonicotinoid insecticides. So something like Poncho, Gaucho, Cruiser. Now the good thing about this, if you're worried and you say, oh no, these pesticides are so dangerous, they're from the same chemical family as nicotine. So yes, I realize that smoking can kill you, but you know what? One cigarette is not gonna kill you. It's gonna be a lot over many, many, many years.
Brian, are you speaking for the tobacco industry here today?
Yeah, but my point is simply, yeah, there's a slight amount of danger there, but there are so many other things in the environment that are way more harmful than that neonicotinoid insecticide put on the seed, and that stuff is very potent to certain insects, yet it's very safe to a lot of humans and livestock and a lot of other things that are out there in the environment.
Well, I guess there's a couple ways you can look at it. You can put a seed treatment like that on to try to kill the bugs that may come along. And you know what? Nobody's going to cry if a few bugs are dead. But let's just say you have a bird come along, like a pheasant. In our state, there are tons of pheasants, and one of the things they enjoy doing is following right behind a corn planter and picking those seeds right out. And they'll pull those seeds out and you're done. And all of a sudden you've got a big area of your field where there's nothing. And what farmers will do now is use a seed treatment like Avapel, which actually is a repellent. It doesn't kill the pheasant. It just kind of tastes bad. So if they get a taste of it, they decide, oh, I don't like how this stuff tastes. I'm going to go to another field or go find my food elsewhere.
So one of the big misconceptions out there is that farmers want to kill everything other than their actual crop. They want everything else dead. But that's not the case at all. A lot of farmers are hunters. They're concerned about the environment. They want to do the right things for the environment. So it's awesome when we can find things that are repellents or things that come out of the nicotine family to use, so we don't have to use super dangerous stuff.
Well, keeping bugs and rodents under control is one thing, stopping weeds is another. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend Soybeans, an advanced soybean product with tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate. Roundup Ready 2 Extend Soybeans. Extend your control.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.9 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
For lower costs and higher production, see your Mandaco dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport and easy use. 12 to 62 foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 by 3/8 inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers. Improved soil to seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss. Eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers.
There are more mouths to feed than ever before. What are farmers doing to meet the challenge? They're using agronomically designed equipment from Case IH. Our Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems are designed to foster a better growing environment that helps farmers maximize yield potential. And our deep understanding of agriculture is preparing them for the challenges ahead. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Go to caseih.com to learn more.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Post-emerge corn broadleaf herbicides, Darren. A lot of people said, oh, we're done with those now that Roundup has come out 10, 15 years ago.
Well, you could. I guess, there's a couple ways to look at things, is just killing the weed that's up and then also having some residual control to control some weeds for another week or two afterwards. That's one of the benefits that a lot of the post-emerge broadleaf herbicides in corn have got. So let's talk about some of these different products and also about the residual they may have.
Okay, so the best one in terms of broad spectrum would be a product called Status. That's got a little bit of dicamba in it, and then another product that isn't sold by itself. It's called diflufenzapyr, and that's been out for better than 10 years now. We think it's great if you have a wide variety of weeds. It also has pretty fast activity, so a lot of people like that. And the only real drawback to it that I see, Darren, is a lot of people get worried about drift. Yes, there's a little bit of dicamba in there. At the very full rate, you're going to have the equivalent of 6 ounces of Banville. Okay, so that's less than a half rate of Banville. It's not much, but nevertheless, any drift over to a sensitive crop becomes an issue.
Okay, now when we talk about drift, there's really two different things that we're talking about. We're talking about physical drift of when you're spraying, the product can be blown over onto something else. But we're also, more importantly, whenever we talk about dicamba, talking about vapor drift. And with the older formulations of dicamba, you can spray it on something and it can pick up later and move again. So if you get an air inversion, if you get a foggy night, there's a number of different situations where that dicamba could pick up and move later on. That's really of more concern to me than the physical drift.
Yeah, but here's the good news. Since there is such a low rate of dicamba in there, it's not a real big deal. Even if a little bit gets over onto soybeans, here's the rule just so you know. If you've shortened the soybeans, then you have actually hurt yield. If all you've done is crinkled the leaves a little bit, I know it might not look great, but odds are you didn't hurt yield at all. In fact, you may have slightly helped yield. We've talked to a lot of guys over the years that they've had a little bit of drift into their soybeans and they realize, oh wow, that's my best yield. I want to try that on my whole field.
Oh no.
It's not labeled. We're not going to advise you to do that, but just so you understand what the rule is on soybeans with any dicamba drift, whether it's the Status, Banville, Clarity, anything. If you shorten the beans, you lose yield. If you don't shorten the beans, no problem.
Okay, quick off-the-wall question. Now, with the new formulation of dicamba for the dicamba-tolerant crops, they're using some different surfactants.
Well,
are those
okay.
going to be available yet this year? Where
No,
a guy
it's
can
not.
use it?
It's not going to be out this year. Might not even be out next year. It's probably, we're looking at 2015 before we see the new formulation of dicamba and possibly even the new formulation of 2,4-D as well. Since I mentioned 2,4-D, I should just say right now, if you're thinking, well, we used to use 2,4-D in corn, why can't I do that? Unless it's in list corn that's tolerant to it, don't do that. That's going to end up hurting the corn. It's going to damage yield. And why? There are a lot of other products that are a lot safer and actually better than the old 2,4-D, so we wouldn't encourage you to do that.
Here's where we go, Brian. Let's talk about safer. And I like the HPPD products like Callisto, Lotus, and Impact. Those products can be sprayed on a little bigger corn without worry of injury than what a dicamba can, for example. I'm not saying they can be sprayed on 4-foot tall corn and just broadcast
but
over
up to
the top.
20 inches, you're probably going to be fine. But what I always get to is, why would you spray 20-inch tall corn anyway? What were you doing when the corn was 10 inches tall or 12 inches tall? So try to get out there and spray timely, because there's two things. There's having dead weeds, and then there's having top yield. Okay, so we want to kill the weeds when they're small so you have top yield. It's not about, well, I can only control them when they're small. Look, with all these corn products, you can kill even big weeds, so what? but I just want to make sure that we have weed control early so we end up with the best yield possible.
Okay, now when we talk about the HPBDs, they're very good on small-seeded broadleaves. They're very good on large-seeded broadleaves. A big weakness in our area is wild buckwheat control. They just don't seem to be very good on that.
And but that's why guys will use Status or Bucktrill. But other than that, you know, what other
the other thing would be perennial weeds, and that's one where Roundup has really been nice, but you can only use a low rate of Roundup comparatively to Roundup Ready soybeans. You can only use a low rate of Roundup in Roundup Ready corn anyway. So dealing with those perennial weeds, it's something that's better off done in a burn down situation or a post-harvest fall application.
Okay, so like Darren said, with the HPPDs, you're talking Callisto, Loudus, Impact, those three. There's also Armazon that's out now. So 4 products that are all very, very similar. Use rates might be a little different, but they're real similar products. Other than that, you got Bucktrill, which is strong on only a few weeds like buckwheat, cockleburr, sunflower, lamb's quarters, and then you could spike any of them with atrazine if you felt you needed to.
And of course you could use Hornet too. That's a combination of Stinger and Python. That's a nice product to use. It's one that doesn't get used a lot or hasn't been used a lot until we got Sure Start and Triple Flex where they're putting that Hornet in pre-emerge. So
yeah, but if you're using it pre, I wouldn't recommend you do it post also.
Correct. That's what I was getting
Same thing with those HPPDs. If you're using Balance Flex pre, we don't want you to use Callisto, Impact, Loudus, or Armazon post-emerge. Switch over to Status or Bucktrill.
Okay, last question, Brian. With a lot of the insecticides that are getting used at planting time, now you're coming back with a post-emerge broadleaf herbicide. Where is the concern there?
So what he's talking about is, especially if you were to use counter insecticide, which is systemic, and you use an ALS herbicide, something like Hornet or Accent for grass post-emerge, you can have interaction and it'll look like you burned your corn really bad. So we don't want that to happen. I mean, it's like severe drought is almost what it looks like after it gets sprayed. Now, there is some talk that, well, if you were to use Lorsban down or, you know, maybe Aztec and you came back with one of the HPPDs, there might be a slight interaction. Yeah, it might be slight. It's certainly nothing major. Some of the companies talk about it. Others say, no, it's really nothing. So just be a little bit cautious with that. Talk to your agronomist. The main thing to avoid is counter and ALS herbicides.
And one last thing, I guess I've said one last thing at least twice now. The last thing that I wanted to point out is just the rates that you're using. Now, when Roundup Ready corn first came out and guys started throwing a little bit of this or a little bit of that in with it, it was always a cut rate of the broadleaf partner. Now we've got some Roundup resistant weeds out there. You need to use a full rate of the broadleaf partner. So don't get using those old cut rates that you used to use. Make sure you're using a strong enough rate, because if a weed is resistant to Roundup, remember, the only thing you're throwing in the tank that's going to have any impact on that weed is the tank mix partner. So don't go out with a cut rate, use a full rate.
Well, speaking of weeds, we'll talk about what you need to control our weed of the week. It's not one of the ones we've mentioned already, but we'll get to it later in the show.
What's new for 2013? Challenge 2050. Challenge 2050 is a 2-component system consisting of a nutrient and a biological additive. This groundbreaking fertilizer contains mycorrhizal fungi, which provide an extended transport system that allows water and nutrients to be delivered directly into the root. Challenge 2050 can increase yield and efficiency of your standard fertilizer program. Challenge 2050 is the future of fertilizer. Call TJ Technologies or your fertilizer dealer and get Challenge 2050 today.
Today's Case IH equipment is packed with industry-leading technology, and Titan Machinery has the experts to make it perform to its maximum potential. We have a team of specialists and the entire Titan Machinery network to provide you with the expertise to keep up with today's advanced machines. Whether it be for your Case IH planters, sprayers, or precision farming equipment, our experts have the answers to get the most out of your equipment investment. Maximize your productivity with Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, Save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Fungicide timings in wheat. You know, Darren and I were just sitting here talking off camera a little bit. Darren made the comment, well, 3 timings post-emerge, yep, but let's talk about pre-emerge too, because you could actually use a fungicide pre-emerge or, you know, with a seed treatment. So you're talking 4 different timings for fungicide in wheat. Why in the world do I need 4 different timings, Darren?
Well, because it's a profitable investment. And we look last year on our farm, one of the things that really stood out, one of the trials that we did, was putting some headline in furrow on our corn. We got a nice yield boost. And we were talking about wheat. Well, of course, you've got Stamina. You can use Stamina as that seed treatment, or you can use some kind of fungicide in the furrow, that type of thing, because we have so much disease pressure early. When you think about wheat, we're normally planting it into cooler soils, and if you've got some moisture, that's a prime condition to get some disease issues.
Yeah, but people aren't really going to do it in furrow like we might in corn. It's going to be a seed treatment for the most part, and Stamina has the same active ingredient as headline. So it's just like putting headline right on your seed, and a lot of people don't realize, oh, I can use headline then? Yep, you sure can.
One other thing that we've seen with the Stamina, even in winter wheat that we've treated with Stamina as a seed treatment, we notice a difference with the amount of disease pressure where we use the Stamina versus where we haven't in the spring.
Well, it's not just Stamina. There are a lot of other good fungicides that can be used as seed treatments, whether it's Charter or Raxol or Dividend. There are a whole bunch of them, and some of those could even be mixed with Stamina. But our point is, when you start thinking about fungicide timings in wheat, don't forget about that pre-emerge or that seed treatment option as well. Okay, let's get to the post timings.
Yeah, when we think about the first pass that we're making in wheat, right at that herbicide timing, the wheat's really small. Putting in a half rate of a fungicide in most cases is sufficient to get good disease control early in the season.
It is, but like on our farm this year, we've had kind of wetter conditions in the spring and cooler. I'm concerned we're going to have some disease pressure now, and I know everybody's been talking about drought for the last year, but you know, drought changes in about 1 day when you get a big rain. And I'm much more concerned about, hey, we can have tremendous yield this year. Our winter wheat's coming out looking really good. I want to make absolutely sure that we're doing everything we can. So we're going to use a full rate on our own farm, but a half rate will probably do it, because think about it for just a second. Because a lot of people will say, well, you're cutting rate, and isn't that going to be an issue for resistance? Well, think about this. If I'm out there with just as much, let's say I'm spraying 10 or 15 gallons of water per acre, and I'm using a fungicide, okay, I've got a tiny little plant right now, as opposed to in a month, I got this great big plant that's got 6 times as many leaves on there, and you're gonna spray the same rate then as now? Well, if I spray that lower rate now, it's probably even more than spraying a full rate later.
Well, that's certainly true. And when we think about the products we can use, there are so many, we can't possibly name them all. I just don't want to see guys going out with anything that has Folicure in it, like a Prosaro, this early in the season, and panic that, oh, I've got stripe rust, I want to have that Prosaro out there. No, save that for later. You're going to need it later. If you got a problem early, there's a pretty good chance you may have a problem later on too. So use the proper products for the right timing.
Okay, so like Darren said, that first timing is herbicide timing. When you're out spraying your herbicide, just throw a half rate or a full rate of fungicide in then. The next really good timing that we've seen over the years has been flag leaf. And actually, if you look at a lot of the research data done by universities, they'll show you that the flag leaf timing is the very best, more than the herbicide timing, more than the heading timing that we'll also talk about later. That flag leaf timing is the best, but it's the least done. Why?
Well, it's just that tight little window. You know, when you look at that flag leaf, it's so important in terms of building yield in the wheat. And you just have this narrow window, and boy, right after that is heading. And if I could just wait a little bit, I could spray it heading and protect that head from head scab.
Well, Darren, here's the reason why I think a lot of farmers don't do the flag leaf timing. It's just that what else are you going to do with that timing? I mean, you're going to go out and spray fungicide. You're not spraying a herbicide. You're probably not going to spray an insecticide. What are you doing then?
I understand. You may say, you know, all these other timings, I can throw something else with it. I'm just worried about getting yield. And how much does it really cost you to go over the field one more time if you've got tram lines out there or you've already driven a path through the field? Follow that track. I think it's a good deal. I think year in and year out, that's going to be a good investment.
I'm not saying it's not a good deal, but I'm just saying I think that's the reason why a lot of people look at it as a timing that they don't really want to do. But it is something we would encourage you at least experiment with on your farm. When all I can tell you is when we've done that on our farm, we have found that we've gotten higher yield with flag leaf timing, even when we've done early and late spray timing.
Well, the other thing we get is peace of mind. You can actually sleep at night because you know what? If a disease does blow in, my most important leaves for determining my yield of my wheat are protected.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about that, because what if it starts raining for a week? All of a sudden, wow, I can't get out there. I can't do anything about it. At least I've got that protection.
Okay, so all the products you can use early, you can also use at flag leaf timing. Now it's whole different when you get into heading timing. Then you should only be using triazoles. Absolutely don't use astrobilurin, or you're likely going to have higher levels of DON.
You know, we've got some guys that say, well, I'm just going to use headline every time in my field, all the way up till flag leaf. Well, if you use Stamina seed treatment, then you use headline early, then you use headline again, I don't like that situation. I like what BASF is doing with Preaxor, with Twinline, with some of these different combination products. So that's fine. If you want to use headline, that's great. If you're looking for just improving your plant health throughout the year, that's wonderful. But now you can put another fungicide with it to make sure we don't have any resistant diseases.
At heading, what we're worried about here is mainly rust and head scab. Okay, so if you're going to just be concerned about head scab, then I absolutely want to invest the money, Prosaro, Caramba, those types of products. If I'm just concerned about rust, then Folicure is probably the way to go, or generic Folicure like Aureus that costs literally $2 an acre for the full rate.
It's pretty good, but again, with Prosaro, yes, you have two triazoles, but you have two different products out there.
True.
And it's going to be a little bit better than just a straight Folicure is going to be. If
I don't
you
know.
have any amount of disease at all, it's going to be worth the difference.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's really going to be worth that difference if all I had was rust. That's
well,
all I'm saying.
If you
if
had $2
you also
wheat,
have
no.
some head scab.
But if you got $6 or $8 wheat, yes.
Okay, well, I think we're going to disagree on that a little bit. I'm probably going to go for the cheap method if all I'm concerned about is rust. But here's the problem. Do you know if you're going to have head scab or not? No, we don't. But that's why typically in our farm, yes, we are investing a few more dollars to go with Prosaro or Caramba, simply because we want to have extra head scab protection. Don't skimp out on the last couple bucks has generally been our motto.
Well, there's a lot to think about with disease control, but you can't forget about our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to control this tough weed coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
You work to protect your farm's legacy and to keep it going. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Well, if you're trying to figure out what our Weed of the Week is, you're probably wondering, well, what is it? I don't see anything behind the corn and soybeans there on the screen.
Yeah, but our Weed of the Week is volunteer corn, and we like to talk about volunteer corn every year because it is the worst yield robber, weed for weed, in soybeans, hands down. So don't think, oh, it's velvet leaf, it's water hemp, it's Palmer pigweed. Weed for weed, volunteer corn takes the most yield.
Well, it's important when we think about volunteer corn. A lot of guys will say, well, should I spray on my first pass out in my field or on my second pass? We absolutely want to spray on that first pass. And if there's some more volunteer corn that comes up later, you'll have to spray on that second pass too.
All right, let's talk about why do we want to spray it on the first pass though?
Well, on the first pass, it's really important. Like Brian said, it's a big time yield robber. Corn takes a lot of water, a lot of nutrients out of the ground. It can definitely hurt your soybeans early in the season. But the other thing is, corn rootworm larvae will use that as a host. If you're saying, well, I'm going to plant corn this year, then soybeans the next year, just to try and break any disease issues or rootworm issues, wrong answer if you let the volunteer corn go. You have to kill volunteer corn.
Okay, but here's the good news. It's inexpensive to do it. It's probably $3 to $5 an acre is all. Select Max you can use. There are also many other products like Arrow, or you could use Post, you could use Assure, you can use a whole bunch of different things.
Here's the problem with all those products, they're very slow working. So when you spray them, it's probably going to take several weeks before you completely kill that corn. So if you're impatient like Brian and you want to find out, man, am I really doing the job? After a week or two, pull the whorl out of the corn, look at the bottom of the whorl. If it's still white and healthy, well, you didn't do a good job. But if it's starting to turn brown and mushy, then you got the weed under control.
Okay, if you had volunteer corn in wheat, we don't have a lot of real great suggestions for you. You could certainly try Axial or Puma, something like that, and it might help you a little bit.
Or a corn knife.
Right. It's generally no big deal having a little volunteer corn in wheat because the wheat has gotten up early and choked it out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's Weed Volunteer Corn, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrek technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
What do you do when it's a little too wet? In today's Iron Talk, I'll reveal a trick that farmers in low wet ground have been using to overcome compaction from spring tillage. If your ground is flat, poorly drained, sticky, or all of the above, here's something you may consider. Doing light tillage to dry things out is a common practice. The downside is pretty well known too. You create compaction at the depth of tillage. It seems like the only way you can get into those fields though, because if you just wait for them to dry up, it may be another week or longer before they're truly ready. Using a Quadtrek can certainly help reduce the compaction your tractor creates, but the smear level just below the soil surface is unavoidable with things like a field cultivator. However, if you run the field cultivator so shallow that the smear level of compaction is actually above the seed zone, when you plant, your furrow openers will actually slice through that smear, leaving a clear path up for your young seedlings. Believe me, I understand the right way to do it is to wait until the soil is ready. But sometimes when it's getting pretty late and you're choosing between prevent plant and actually getting a crop, you need to get going. So just keep your tillage shallow enough that it's above the seed depth and cut through it with your row openers. That's all the time we have for today's Iron Talk, but there's more Ag PhD right after this.
Your equipment's ready. The seed's in the barn. You have a strategy to overcome the challenges you'll face, and your crop protection products are pretty well locked in. But maybe you still haven't finalized your fertilizer plans. If not, visit agroliquid.com today. With products formulated for superior nutrient uptake, unsurpassed application flexibility, and proven by years of extensive research, this may be the season to take your yields to the next level using agriculture liquid fertilizers.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling zero downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Today's number is 3. You can see it everywhere, and it can stand for almost anything. But when it comes to protecting the nitrogen that feeds your crops, 3 is the special number that sets Nutrisphere N, Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager, apart. Because Nutrisphere N is proven to reduce all 3 forms of nitrogen loss, which adds up to keeping more nitrogen and yield where it belongs. So ask for Nutrisphere N, the stabilizer that fights nitrogen loss 3 ways.
Micronutrients are not optional for plants, they are essential. TJ Micromix is a profit-proven management tool that ensures the availability of essential secondary and micronutrients. Formulated as a dry granule or liquid, TJ Micromix is plant available, easy to mix and apply. The synergistic fertilizer mix delivers consistent yield response on a variety of crops by complementing an NPK fertilizer program. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your fertilizer dealer and get your TJ Micromix today.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.